Welcome back. So, to get into it, I wanted to do something a little bit different, not always talk about tech. This is a lifestyle and tech channel. So, I'm going to tell you guys about the time that I almost got arrested. So, anybody that knows me knows in the past I had a problem with speeding. I used to speed everywhere. I'd also like to add that I am a terrible driver. I will admit that. I don't have enough money to have a driver. Otherwise, I would never drive again. I don't deserve to be on the road. I'm a terrible driver. And everybody complains about Georgia drivers, and I am one of those drivers that people are complaining about. I'm not good at it. But when I first got a car, and when I was just like younger, there was this time where I would always speed. So I'm always speeding. I would never look at the speedometer. I got so many tickets to the point that like my parents were very upset because they're very responsible when it comes to driving. Like my mom has never had a speeding ticket. My dad has had a few, but I just kept getting them. So this actually wasn't a speeding incident, but what ended up happening was I had gotten a speeding ticket and I paid it off. But here in Georgia, we have something that's called super speeder. And with that, what happens is if you're, I think, 15 or more over the speed limit, you qualify on a highway in certain areas, you qualify for what's called super speeder. So what they do is you pay your ticket, which I think mine was like 200 something, and then they certify mail you another ticket for $200 and they suspend your license. So, I didn't know that. I'd already been trying to keep it under the wraps because I'd gotten so many tickets. I had tried to kind of keep it under wraps that I even got another speeding ticket. So when my parents called me, because all my mail goes to my legal permanent address is my parents' address. So they certified mailed it because that's the address on my license. They certified mailed it to my parents. So they asked me and they called me. They said, "Hey, did you get another speeding ticket?" And I was like, "No." Don't lie, okay? Don't be like me. Don't lie. So I was like, So I said no, right? And they're like, "Well, why do we have this certified letter for $200?" And I was like, $200? I just paid a speeding ticket, and that my license was suspended. So I called the court. I asked them to take a picture of it for me. So they took a picture. I called the court and I was like, "Hey, I already paid this speeding ticket." They're like, "Oh, how super speeder works is you pay your ticket, then they send you another ticket for $200. That's your fine for super speeding, and they suspend your license." So I was like, "Why wouldn't you just tell me my ticket's $400? They were like, "That's just how it works." So I'm like, "Fine, whatever." Now, keep in mind, right after I paid this ticket, but before I got the super speeder, I had just recently renewed my license. Keep that in mind. So anyways, long story short, I was going to campus. This was my first year of grad school, and I remember it was the day of my first grad school test. So this had to be 2013, 2014. And I had a friend staying with me because at the time, I lived very close to the MARTA station, which is like the train here in Atlanta. I lived close to the MARTA station, like a block away, and there was a MARTA stop by our school. I went to Georgia State University. There's a MARTA stop by our school. So she was in between cars. So she stayed with me so that she could either, when she had super early morning class, when I didn't have to be at work, she would get on the train and just go to school. On that particular day, we both had to be on campus around the same time. So I was like, "Hey, I'll take you, don't worry about it." So I'm glad I took her, okay? Because guess what happened? So I go and drop her off in one building, and then I go to the parking deck to park so I could go to my grad assistantship. And I pull in front of this. You know how most people do this, okay? When the light is yellow and you want to make the light, you will pull out in in front of that line while you're waiting for the cars that are coming in the opposite direction to pass. And then even if the light turns red, you can still turn because you're already kind of in the way. So I did that. I did that downtown, Georgia State. Anybody knows 5 Points area? That's where I did that at. Unbeknownst to me, there's a cop right there. So then he turns on his lights, and I didn't even think it was me that he was trying to get to. And I'm like, what's he pulling me over for? I wasn't speeding. I was at the light, like no stop sign. I would like to add that this was before the whole Michael Brown, Black Lives Matter, and this is also important. So he pulls me over and I'm just all kinds of confused, like, what? And me not even just thinking of where I was. I open my door, and as soon as I open my door, he opens his door and like has his gun like this, and I'm like, he's like, "Don't exit." And I'm like, "Okay, my bad." Like, definitely a ditzy moment, you know, and could have been completely different for me. But that's not where this is not where it gets interesting. Now we're getting interesting. So he comes up to me, he's like, hey, do you know you're not supposed to do that? And I was like, do what? He said, you're not supposed to pull out in front of a yellow light and wait for the other traffic to go and then go. And I'm like, for me, it's just kind of like, maybe I'm not supposed to. To be honest, I don't remember what was on my driving test. And I see everybody do it, so I didn't think anything of it. So he was like, and I ran your license plate in the car, and you know your license is suspended. I'm like, what? He was like, your license is suspended. I was like, no, it's not. I renewed it. I got a super speeder, which suspended my license, but I paid my super speeder. It should be reinstated in the system. And he was like, no, your license is suspended. And I'm like, oh, mind you, I'm on Georgia State's campus. So I'm like I'm literally like 2 lights away, this close from the parking deck. So I was like, okay, like, so you're gonna give me a ticket? He's like, I can't let you drive. And I was like, he's like, your license is suspended. And I'm like, so what am I supposed to do? He's like, your options are, you can either have somebody drive your car, get the tow truck, or he's like, or get the tow truck to tow your car, or I could take you to jail. And I didn't think about the driving of the car person. I didn't remember that I just dropped her off. And I was like, who am I about to get? It's only 9 a.m. And I was like, okay, well, I'll see if I can get somebody. And he was like, I was like, how much time do I have? Like, you know? And he was like, I called the tow truck when I was writing your ticket. So you only have about 5 minutes. And I'm like, bruh, what? Like, so this is a setup. I was like, I bet. And he was like, okay. And I'm like, all right. I was trying to rack my brain. I was like, okay, I may not be able to find anybody. What are my other options? He's like, either I'll tow your car, and he's like, if you don't find anybody, we'll tow your car and you can go sit in jail. And I'm like, you know, now anybody that has Nigerian and or ethnic parents, you know that sometimes your parents can be petty. My car at that time was in my dad's name. My dad happened to be in Nigeria at that moment. And not saying, and in my previous experience with having another friend's car towed, I know that when your car is in somebody else's name, you have to get permission from that person to release your car to you. So even though I'm driving the car, it's in my dad's name, my dad would be the one that has to let them give it back to me. Now my dad's in Nigeria. That's not the problem. But the problem is, I'd already gotten so many speeding tickets, my parents were already mad that I even had a car. So now that I not only potentially just lost this car by getting it towed, but B, I live next to MARTA station, so I can get back and forth to campus. I just knew, my dad being who my dad is, he was not gonna do it. He was not gonna let them release that car to me. He was not gonna do it just to teach me a lesson. So I literally thought about it, and I was just like, take me to jail. And he was like, what? And I'm like, take me to jail. And then he's like, either find someone in 5 minutes or take you to jail. And I'm like, take me to jail. I already did the math in my head. Let me send somebody money real quick to get me out. What I'm about to sit here, a day? Take me to jail, because there's just no way that my dad is gonna let me have this car. I'd rather just let me sit in jail and I'll get the car back tomorrow. Like, take me to jail. Apparently the car stays there. Take me to jail. I'll come back and pick this car up tomorrow. Take me to jail. He was just like, I think you better think about that. I was like, no, I thought about it. Take me to jail. Take me to jail. Take me to jail. Like I said, this was before BLM, because now, don't take me to jail. But before, take me to jail. So he was just like, well, you still have a few minutes. And I was just like, oh. He's like, I know you're telling me to take you to jail, but I think it's better for you to not go to jail. Mind you, the officer is telling me not to go to jail, okay? But I was ready to go to jail. You know, I was being naive and the thinking of going to jail, just what could happen in between the time actually being in jail. But to me, jail was better than having to tell my dad that I need him to fax from Nigeria this information or release it so that I could get my car back, which I knew he would not do. It's not that it can't be done, he wouldn't do it. So in my little naive brain, I'm like, jail is better than this. Take me to jail, okay? So he refused to take me to jail. So I'm racking my brain and I'm like, okay, who can I call? And I was like, bruh, you just dropped somebody off. Call them. So I called her like 3 times. Oops. I'll block that out. But I called her like 3 times and she finally answered. She was in class. I was like, don't ask no questions. I am by MDEC. Get your ID and run. I was like, just run, okay? Just run. Don't ask questions. Bring your ID, run. She literally runs. If anybody knows Georgia State area, she runs. I don't even remember what the building is called, but it's next to Anatolia. Anybody that went to Georgia State, you know what I'm talking about. It's next to Anatolia, the hookah spot, hookah and food spot, and right by Adderhole building in that whole area. She ran from there all the way to MDOT. That's a few blocks. I was like, run, just run. She runs. So imagine watching her run all the way up the street, and she hands him her ID, and then literally right as she hands the police officer her ID, the tow truck pulls up. And I knew they were in cahoots, because as soon as he saw me and her, and he realized the tow truck, as soon as he saw me and her and realized what was happening, he was like, he started clapping and pointing. I was like, yeah, I did that. I almost went to jail, but I did that, you know? So I know they're in cahoots together, okay? I knew they were in cahoots because he said he had called them before. So they probably have a little scam or business running, you know? That was years ago. I don't know if that's still the case, but that was definitely, they were definitely in cahoots. He was just like, and I was like, yeah, I did that. So yeah, she ended up driving my car, picking me up, driving my car. I ended up just looping back around and dropping her off and then parking my car. I ended up going to work late because everything happened. But before I went to work, there's a DMV down the street from where I was. So I was like, oh, no. I almost went to jail for y'all. We're sorting this out right now. So I let my boss know I'm gonna be late. I went to DMV. I was like, y'all almost got me arrested. My ID is saying suspended. What's going on? And they were like, and they're like, oh yeah, it's an error in our system. They literally just handed me a new ID. I didn't even have to take a picture, nothing. I'm just like, now y'all. So I almost went to jail because of error in your system, because I renewed right before I got that super speeder, but I almost went to jail. And y'all, all it is, oh yeah, error in our system. Here you go. Oh, so in summary, that is the time that I almost went to jail. If you guys like these stories, like I said, this isn't just a tech channel. If you like these stories, please let me know. I have plenty of these stories. You know, I would not advise electing to go to jail. Okay, I would not advise it at all, especially nowadays climate. Especially if you got a little melanin like me, don't do it. Don't be like me. This was years ago. Okay, this was years ago. So I hope you guys enjoyed that little story time. It's just a little sprinkle of my life and a little bit of entertainment, especially on this holiday weekend for 4th of July. To all my Americans, happy 4th of July. So it's just a little bit of like break from tech talk and just a little laughter to give you guys. You know, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know if you liked it and if you would like to see more. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week and enjoy your little break. Have a good one.